Last fall, before George Smitherman quit the legislature to seek greater but fleeting glory as Mayor of Toronto, an amazing story was published in the Toronto Star. According to inside sources, Mr. Smitherman had been gang-tackled by his cabinet colleagues over something called the Samsung deal. Until this time, Mr. Smitherman had led a rather charmed political life. Rising through the ranks of the legislature, he had surpassed equally cunning and ambitious Liberal MPPs to be named the Deputy Premier of Ontario by Premier Dalton McGuinty. The Premier was said to be impressed by his ability to get things done and his evident willingness to act as the partisan pit bull in the House. Behind the scenes, there were numerous accounts of his erratic and explosive temper and his use of threats and intimidation to accomplish his personal agenda. But all of this seemed to have the Premier's blessing. Assuming the story in the Star was accurate, why were Liberal cabinet ministers so strongly opposed to the Samsung deal that they worked in collusion to try to kill it? There is no question that Ontario needs strong leadership, particularly on the electricity file. Our industrial base was built on relatively inexpensive and very reliable hydro. Public power at cost, as advocated by Sir Adam Beck 100 years ago, was one of our most significant competitive advantages throughout the 20th century. Now, according to the experts, we need to build substantial new electricity generating capacity and invest in upgrades to our transmission networks. All of this takes years with multiple layers of approvals, financing arrangements, and ultimately construction to bring new assets online. Many energy experts agree that there may be potential for wind and solar generation as a limited part of a new, greener energy mix, anchored by hydro and nuclear power, with a diminishing fossil fuel component. Which brings us back to the Samsung deal. The broad details the government is prepared to release are these. Samsung, a Korean-based company, commits to investing $7 billion, building 4 new factories, and creating 1,440 jobs. What the government is less likely to acknowledge is the cost to Ontario taxpayers. This Buy Korean policy includes an incentive of $437 million. That's $303,000 for every job being created, and a commitment to pay up to 4 times the going rate for wind power and up to 15 times the going rate for solar power. On top of this, Ontario energy companies appear to be pushed out in favor of a preferential deal with a foreign conglomerate. No wonder Mr. Smitherman's cabinet colleagues planned the ambush last fall. Yet it appears that Mr. McGuinty intervened on his side, because even though Mr. Smitherman has moved on, the policy is still here, and the government signed the Samsung deal. Brace yourself for a big jump in your hydro bill when the new HST kicks in on Canada Day, and when the costs of this deal are passed on to you and the other ratepayers in Ontario.